Hello and welcome to the Rob Burgess Show. I am of course your host Rob Burgess. On this, our 280th episode, our returning guest is me. I have done nearly 24 previous solo episodes of this podcast. For the complete list, check the show notes. I am a 35-time award-winning journalist whose work has appeared in print, radio, online, and television. I am currently a reporter for Financial Planning magazine. Most recently, I was technology reporter for Wealth Management magazine, editor of the Wabash Plain Dealer, news editor of NUVO, managing editor of the Indiana Lawyer, and city editor, opinion page editor, and editorial board member of the Kokomo Tribune. I was also a reporter at WFHB, the Times-Mail, the Reporter Times, Ukiah Daily Journal, and Ukiah Valley Television. Oh yeah, and I'm also the proprietor of the podcast, The Rob Burgess Show. And now on to the show. Hello, great to be back with you for another solo episode of The Rob Burgess Show. It is of course me, your host, your guest, your everything for this episode, Rob Burgess. This is going to be a very special episode of The Rob Burgess Show. It's about a field trip I took in 5th grade. And why are we talking about a field trip I took in 5th grade, you might rightly ask? Well, that mainly has to do with the fact that you can watch said field trip right now on YouTube. Let me explain. First, I'd like to read a House of Burgess column I wrote when I was news editor of NUVO. This column was published February 23rd, 2019, and was titled, Past as Prologue. Quote, I don't wake up each morning thinking I'm going to see a video of a field trip from 5th grade today. But that's what happened February 15th when TJ Riddle, another former classmate from Mitchell, Indiana, tagged me on Facebook with a YouTube video, Dennis Watterson teaching his Burris Elementary kids about local Mitchell history. I had seen the video once years ago, but when I went back to search for it, I was unable to find it again. Until now. The video, uploaded to YouTube by his son, Justin Watterson, was recorded in 1993. I hit play, and there I am, right at the start in the very front of the crowd in my Atlanta Braves windbreaker and sneakers, my notebook and writing utensil at the ready. I'm watching this at my desk at work. I look down at the stack of reporters' notebooks and red pens. Looks like not much has changed there. The scene is a wooded area in Lawrence County, Marion Township, west of Liberty Baptist Church Road. Mr. Watterson is relating an oral history related to him by Van Rensselaer Sanders of the forgotten graveyard we were restoring that day. If you are interested in Oliver Burnett and the Lost Creek settlement, Justin Watterson has also done a fair amount of research and written his own article on the history. The intense feelings which accompany watching oneself at another time in one's life were only compounded by the fact the event I was reliving was in itself a remembrance of a time past. In the video, Mr. Watterson instructs us, his students, to draw sketches of the 3 gravestones and write down notes before putting posts behind them. Near the end of the clip, Mr. Watterson turns to the camera. It's as if he knows he's speaking directly to me watching this now. You need to remember your past because that's how you learn about your future and know where you're going. That's why history and social studies are so important, he said. After I finished watching it, I found my way to Justin Watterson's Twitter account. I told him who I was, and he immediately offered to put me in touch with his father. On Thursday, I called the number. There he was, Mr. Watterson. We talked for about 15 minutes about the graveyard and our lives. I asked him if there was a time he watched himself from when he was younger. He told me about the time when he was growing up when Mitchell's late hometown hero, astronaut, Virgil I. Gus Grissom, visited his classroom when he was still a fighter pilot. He told me he remembered it like it was yesterday. History was always my favorite subject growing up, and I've only grown to appreciate it more as I've gotten older. I have hopes and dreams and fears in 2019. I also did in 1993. So did the people in 1872. Realizing that people years ago, even people who were actually me, felt the same things as I do now helps me understand its importance. End quote. So, now I'd like to read the article I referenced in that column, which was written by Justin Watterson. This was published February 24th, 2018, on his WordPress blog, The Wattersonian, and is titled The Remains of Oliver Burnett and Lessons from the Woods. Quote, throughout my many days of unsanctioned academia, I have learned that the study of things inevitably leads to the study of other things. This is the insatiable thirst for knowledge for those of an enlightened mind, or at very least those who perpetually seek to find enlightenment. To some degree, it is a core attribute of survivalism. Find everything out, know as much as you can, past, present, future, as it is the only way to establish roots for future generations. Future generations are a funny thing. Long after our ancestors passed, here we are, still going through their things, not altogether different from the painful sorting of material things immediately after their departure. They are not the same types of things, rather they are dates, signatures, head counts, historical documents, all the things in the genealogist's toolbox. And the genealogy, as it were, inevitably leads to detours, or as we rehabilitated gamers refer to them, side quests. For my own decades of study, I have reached an unbearable dead end with one John Watterson, counted in the 1830 census in Scott County, Indiana, resting place unknown, origin unknown, a literal ghost of my past, though there is no argument against the documentation I have that proves he was there. So here I rest with my Watterson lineage. Genealogy, as with all academia, is nothing without a proper trail. I have distant kin who seek the same knowledge, and they have made leaps of speculation, but that is not something my somewhat scientific mind will allow. It's habeas corpus for me, and the remains of John Watterson have not been unearthed. But you know what you feel sometimes, and I feel that the constant desire to know things is innate and hereditary. I witness it in my children on a daily basis. The son of a school teacher, a man who ritually immerses himself in books, in history, in documentaries. I'm driven by the same things that drive him. And my grandfather, a man who never finished high school due to ditching school in 1945 to enlist, always bestowed this upon me as he would slowly go about reading every single article in his American Legion magazine. I always try to learn something new every day. Now that I've mentioned the two most prominent male role models in my life, I can segue into what I wish to contribute to Black History Month. I am incredibly proud of what I'm about to lay before you here, as it represents 3 generations of my family. I am also incredibly proud of everything herein, because it is reflective of our values in most of the forgotten countryside of rural America, despite what is too often written in offices miles away in urban sprawls. All of this research and information would not have been possible without one Van Rensselaer Sanders. Mr. Sanders lived right down by the farm where I grew up. He has a story of his own, but for our purposes here, he was a man born there in that area in 1897, who carried the oral traditions of his ancestors that inevitably led us to where we landed, we 3 generations of Watterson men. It came to be that 40 acres of the Sanders place turned over to a logging outfit during his elderly years, and then that my father and grandfather purchased it after the logging company was finished with it. To this day, Dad still refers to it as the Sanders place. This is unimportant to the story for the most part, but it does proffer some bit of insight into multi-generational camaraderie and connectivity of folks in rural communities that some do not adequately comprehend. To further cement the point, Van is buried in Liberty Baptist Cemetery. I was baptized in this church, and it is a stone's throw from our house at the farm. Van used to tell my father stories, and my father listened because we are a family attuned to elders. It has always been that way, and it is no different for me. My grandfather was the youngest of 7 brothers, and as was the case, they were very much his elders. His father passed when he was only 11. For my part, I grew up in the shadows of old men who had seen things and knew things, many of them in Liberty Baptist Church. One of the stories Van relayed to Dad was the story of the Black Cemetery over on the side of Antony Hill. He said there were just a few graves there in young woods that had been cleared, but again had grown over. They were being supplanted by time and Mother Earth. Now, a Watterson is a funny breed of human. You will tell a Watterson something like that, and he will go full Indiana Jones and undertake the quest to unlock the past. Dad did exactly that. Sometime in the early 90s, he found the Black Cemetery. He located it in a young forested area that was essentially briar and bush that we endured every spring in order to find one of our preferred mushroom spots. But Dad, as reverent and respectful of those that have gone before us, he left it. And then he came back with his 5th grade class. He took them out to work on putting up a chained fence. They set up and repaired the gravesite, one with a name and several others with no name, and they took pencils and paper and wrote about it and a camera to photograph it so that the history would remain. The Black Cemetery. Jane Burnett. That was the name on the lone stone. Further study led me to her maiden name of Isom. There's no shortage of Isoms in our area, including some that have attended our very own church. Their families have been there since those old days. But what of the other graves? 20 years or so later, and Dad gave me all our old VHS tapes to transfer to digital format. Many of them I hadn't seen since I was a child. Some of them I had never seen. The gravesite visit video was one that I had not. Immediately, my interest was piqued. I am a furious researcher when it comes to history and genealogy, especially when I acquire that keen focus. Let's find Jane Isom on the census. Let's find out more about this story. Go. Be forewarned that this eventually evolves into folklore, as all things do. We document as much as we can, and then some things we don't wish to, and then we waste time on some things and miss out on other things that we should have been documenting, and by the time I finish this exceedingly long sentence, I will have forgotten some quasi-important factoid of this story to boot. Technology has given us research avenues that were never in place before. For all the uselessness and inanity of today's incarnation of the internet, it still serves its purpose as a research tool if you wish it to. My experience in researching my own family became very useful in my quest to find out more about those buried at the little cemetery. First, I found Jane Isom Burnett on the census. It included in her domicile her husband and their children. Oliver Burnett was the man's name. It was just starting to roll from there. If you don't know a lot of the history of Indiana, don't feel bad. A lot of it is sordid and lawless, often the law themselves the sordid ones. Yes, there were factions of white elitists who developed secret societies that eventually developed into the White Caps and later the Klan. This happened and is unfortunate because it doesn't represent the greater good of the state, the people like me, the meager and meek, humble and honest. The state's name is almost a cruel joke in some ways, but sometimes the cruelest jokes are the ones that carry the most honor. It is not without due honor that things developed throughout history, with natives sometimes entering treaties, trading huge parcels of land for mere bushels of salt. There is another anecdote here about the scarcity of salt in the early pioneer days, but I will leave that for another time. I say all this only to reference that there were 13 years between the Treaty of Grouseland in 1805 and the Treaty of St. Mary's in 1818, and in that time one area near the White Wapahani to the Lenape River to the north was Indiana Territory, and the other to the south was mostly poor white settlers. These were most often farming pioneers who cleared the woods in order to plant their fields. There's an old Indian boundary line that runs right by where the old Black Cemetery is, and this is key to remember. But who are you, Oliver Burnett? It took me little time to read about something that I never knew a thing about, something with remnants in my own backyard for all that time growing up. I learned of the Lost Creek settlement and some of the common names associated with it. Burnett. The Lost Creek settlement was composed of free people of color from Maryland, Virginia, and North Carolina who had migrated westward to find a place to settle. Many of them settled around Vigo County, where the official geographic Lost Creek settlement resided. But the Lost Creek settlement as a generic term is more the people who descended from those that were in those areas at the time. The slaves of John Fulcher, the Anderson family, are an example of these who were freed upon his death and sent on to acquire land. And in fact, there was a family of Andersons who lived just down the road in the days of the Burnetts. In short, if you don't want to do further reading, though I don't know why you would not, the Lost Creek settlement was a mix of lower-class African Americans, Native Americans, Scots-Irish Americans, and a subsequent mix of all of the above. They truly were progressives of their day. Such are the poor. But Oliver Burnett led me even further. I found a post in a Cherokee genealogy forum from 2003 by Sinye Eaglewolf, looking for information about Oliver Burnett, descendant of the Lost Creek settlement. Sinye Eaglewolf descended from Oliver Burnett. I looked him up. I found him on Facebook, and I contacted him. I told him that Dad had found the gravesite and that I would take him out whenever he liked. He unfortunately replied that his health was poor and that he didn't make it away from LA that much anymore. I tried to contact his son but never heard back. Things went cold from there. I learned some things from Sinye, though. He told me that Oliver Burnett was not black, but native, and that he had fled the Trail of Tears to head north and escape to free land in Indiana. All men were freedmen per the Indiana Constitution when statehood began in 1816. This is where the folklore comes in. I do not disbelieve Sinye, but I am science-minded enough to need documentation for these things. What I do know is that Oliver Burnett is marked as black on census documents. On others, he is marked white. And this is important. With early census records, what methodology was put in place? Did the census taker say, "What do you identify as?" That's how we talk now, sure. More likely, he made his own judgment call. I am certain there were many folks documented in those days who could not read or write. They'd have thought little of an inscription of W or B. Now, when we have all this documentation, and I've sourced so little here because I am more focused on telling the story than putting everything in concrete, we can draw some conclusions on what may or may not have been going on right there in the southern parts of Marion Township in Lawrence County, Indiana. Everything that follows is my speculation. Oliver Burnett and Jane Isom were most assuredly mixed race. I can't speculate much on it, but to be listed as black in one census and white in another would lead one to believe as such. The Anderson family, also surely descendants of the Lost Creek settlement, as it is another one of the associated names, lived right up the road. About a half-mile further to the south sat the farm of Marvin Cleveland, a man of faith who is buried in Liberty Baptist Cemetery in the church where I was baptized. 40 acres of Marvin Cleveland's farm now sits the house that I grew up in. They settled right there by that Indiana boundary line. You can speculate about the reasons for that on your own, but I don't think it's a leap to say they wanted to be able to jump that fence if ever need be. Or they were there in some sort of DMZ where the lower middle class whites and natives and people of color could interact, liaisons of sorts. But they had their freedom, and they settled on land in a free state where they could live their lives. But they had their freedom, and they settled on land in a free state where they could live their lives as such radically blended people, which is what the United States is, no matter how many racial wedge issues we continue to hear the disillusioned attempt to drive home. But this is not a socio-political discussion. Did the Burnetts attend church at Liberty Baptist? I don't know. Dad questions it in his video. Did they bury their dead there because they weren't allowed in Liberty Cemetery? I can't answer that either, only speculate. There are so many things that cannot be precisely cornered with the whole story. I'm sure that there's more to document, but as always, poof, it runs out. What I know is that this, for me, has been a family passion for over 2 decades. Even my grandfather was involved, and as he makes his typical ridiculous jokes within the video, I cherish what I feel is a tremendous accomplishment, to shine light upon those who have passed, to be their voice, that they have a story to tell, even a century and a half later, that the history that was claimed from them will be reclaimed by those of us willing to illuminate our minds with knowledge. Back to the sordid history of Indiana. It's there. They killed our history. The Fugitive Slave Act meant that slave catchers would cross the Ohio River looking for runaway slaves. If they couldn't find them, they'd just take back whoever. The Dawes Act started shipping natives further out west. In the late 19th century, the Whitecaps ran roughshod through the countryside, terrorizing anyone they felt immoral. It began with no particular notion of race, but it morphed into something else. It became safe to be fair-skinned and lower class, a W on the census, but if you were a B, you had to consider moving north. Eventually, the KKK became a prominent driving force in Indiana government, all thanks to how supposed racial identity developed. It then became exceedingly unsafe to be a person of color in southern Indiana, and central and northern parts as well. The Great Migration was underway, and everybody left the sleepy little rural areas in the southern Indiana woods, the place where things should have worked, the place where things made more sense, where people could be left alone. Even in Mitchell alone, an entire black community known as Stringtown became lost, and it should have never been that way, but for census takers and politicians. I've been working on this piece for all of February. I wanted to contribute to Black History Month in my own very personal way. I'll talk about this any of the other 11 months as well, and it's not even all about black folks anyway. It's about folks. It's about history. It's about us as a unified people in a day that seeks to push us further and further apart. A world that doesn't want a Lost Creek settlement. A world that tells you to stay in your lane. There are lessons here. There are always lessons throughout history. It's what it's there for. The thought of all these mixed-race pioneers probably didn't see those drawings much in your history books. Rest in peace, Burnett family. I will do my duty to see that your graves are kept clean. End quote. So that's where the story stood for a few years for me. Then a few weeks ago, I was cleaning out some boxes in my garage, and I actually found the notebook pictured in that YouTube video, which I was writing in on that field trip. Here is what I wrote October 26th, 1993. Quote, "Our cemetery field trip. We left at 9:24 a.m. to private little spot with 3 grave sites. To get here, go down Highway 60 to the 3rd road on the left. Go down till you see an open field on the left is a hill. Climb up it until you have almost reaches the top. Go into the woods, and when you see 3 stones, Mr. Watterson told us about the importance of written history. Then we put holes in the ground. Then we put posts in the ground. Then Mr. Watterson talked about folklore. Then we put some hooks in the posts. After that, we put a long, long chain that we put around the posts. Then we asked questions. We went back down the hill. Then we went back to the bus. We retraced our steps there. As we went home, Mr. Watterson told us about a guy who killed his wife and 2 brothers with a hairpin. I did not believe it. We got back to school at 10:40 a.m. This field trip was very, very fun and interesting." End quote. I then found Justin on Facebook and asked him if he knew any more about that last bit that I wrote in my notebook, because apparently 10-year-old me was not buying it. This is what Justin told me in response. Quote, "I should have known the story you were referring to. That grave is an Isom woman, and I think she was related to the perpetrator in question. When Van Sanders used to tell those stories to Dad when he was alive, his family was an original plot owner there in that area, so he knew the history. He always referred to the hill as Anthony Hill. I found census records for, I believe, an Anthony Isom. The story was that his wife fell disabled, invalid, and he got tired of taking care of her, so he took an axe and chopped her up. Finding records of that is pretty much impossible, but that's what you're referring to, I think. There were a bunch of mixed-race folks who settled right there in that area, and I always kind of guessed that it was because the old Indian boundary line was right there going through that area way back in the day. Isom was such a very common name among them, and they mostly came from Virginia, where other such settlements existed. There were notable other settlements of free people of color around the state back in the 19th century. It's an interesting wormhole to go down. What defined black on the census was kind of crazy. I found some people on the 1850 census who were marked as black, but then 10 years later they were white." End quote. So now, without further ado, let's travel 32 years in the past. Here is the audio from that field trip, the video of which, again, you can see right now on YouTube. Thank you to Justin and Dennis Watterson for your help with this story. And thank you for listening, and I'll be back with you next time.
Now, I want to tell you what I know about. I've tried to get across to you how important written history is. The absence of written history about what's here hurts us because we have no idea many things about the people who are buried here, how many who are buried here, who they were, or anything. Very, very important. Just let me tell you what I know and how I know it. I know it from talking to older people who have carried stories on from their parents and their grandparents. Now, you're very, very fortunate because there are very few people your age who even know the existence of this little cemetery. Most people are old, and as those people die, this information is going to be lost completely. That's why it's so important that we document this and get things down in your journal and you remember, so that you can carry these. Ago, there were basically two families that came into this area. One of them was the Burton family, who Desiree and Lacey are descendants of the Burtons. The first man who was a Burton who came into this area was a man by the name of John Pleasant Burton, and he's the fellow that I mentioned down there that's buried in that cemetery. The Burtons came from Pennsylvania. Now, there was another family by the name of Isons. And a descendant of the Isoms was a man by the name of Sanders, a Mr. Van Sanders, and that's where I got most of my information about this cemetery. Mr. Sanders now is dead. He died a couple years ago. I also found out some information from some other Isoms. But anyway, the Isom family. The Isom family was different from the Burton family because they came from the South. They came from the Carolinas. Now, we talked about the Carolinas yesterday in social studies, how they were southern colonies, right? And they adopted many of the southern ways of life, including slavery. Now, when the Isoms came into Indiana, and I'm not sure what year that was, but we think they brought with them, or these people had been slaves, but when they moved into Indiana, they were actually free because they were in a free territory. If they came after the Civil War, they came pretty much just as servants. Now, why did they come? They didn't really have any place else to go. Many of them had been born into these families and had grown up since they were a child. It was the only life they knew, so they came. Now, how do I know that? All right, I know it for several reasons. Number one, Mr. Van Sanders told me, just across by an old black woman many years ago. I have walked back in that woods and I have found that house. Indeed, there is a house there. I also know there are some foundations for some homes over down the hill here and up close to where Mr. and Mrs. Edwards lived down here, the old couple that I was telling you about. All right? So I think this story is true. Now, there's a lot of folklore connected to this cemetery, and I'm going to tell you some of it after we leave. All right? I don't want to tell you now because it'd be kind of disrespectful, I think, to this is a cemetery, and it'd be disrespectful of the dead. Now, why are they buried here? The time we're talking about, blacks and whites did not mingle. Liberty Baptist Church. And that church was actually there about the time that these people probably were buried here. They have a cemetery at our church. It's a nice cemetery. I mow it. There's some beautiful stones, but these people weren't buried up there. Why do you suppose? They were black. And the blacks didn't go to that church because it was a white. The blacks and the whites did not mingle. So the blacks buried their people wherever, and this happened to be the spot. You'll notice that it's on a fairly high crest of a hill, isn't it? If you ever noticed about cemeteries, many times cemeteries are actually put on a hill. Why is that? Maybe closer to heaven, do you reckon? They're simply homemade stones. I cannot tell at any time there was ever a name on them at all. I probably know where these stones came from. If you walk about 100 yards that direction, there is an old gullied creek bed. Actually, it is the end of a spring that goes back under the ground but washes out all the dirt. There are stones down there right now in the, I have this in my mind. I can see these people, probably went down there, picked up some stones, maybe chopped some corners off of them, and that's what these stones were made out of. Now this stone, and this is the one I'm going to fix up later on, This is actually a stone that was cut by somebody. All right? Now, it's very easy to read. There's a woman in the cemetery by the name of Jane Burnett. She was born in 1872. Now that's 121 years ago. Now imagine, if you will, take yourself back 121 years. I don't know where, probably in that direction, because that road wasn't even there in 1872. That road was not even in existence, I don't think, as far as I know. They walked up this hill, they had a small little service. Probably the woman was buried in a pine box, or maybe nothing at all, but probably an old box of some kind, a wooden coffin. Very small service. They probably were religious people. You see that? That says this woman went somewhere. Where? Huh? Unless she was a believer in God and believed that there was an afterlife. Don't you imagine? Or at least her family was. And so they were probably religious. Probably for a time there were people that came up to this cemetery and brought flowers and maybe put on these graves. But after a while, all the black people that came with the Isons, the servants, died. Or else they left and went somewhere else. And there were no black people living left in the area that came with the Isons. And this cemetery was forgotten. There are people today, somewhere in America, that are related to the people buried in this cemetery. They have no idea where great-great-great-grandpa whoever, or great-great-great-great-grandma Jane is. Because that information has been lost to time. Because of why? No written records. No written history. Alright? That guy coming on the four-wheeler's my dad. Don't you kids watch him, because he bites kids. He's awful bad about fighting kids. Alright? Now, what we're going to do, I will come down some other time here. I'm going to place this stone about here. Alright? I'm going to put a metal post behind it and try to cement the very bottom of it in. But you see, I can't cement it very far, can I? Because if I do, I'm going to cover up the 1872. And I don't want to do that. One last thing about this. What do you think? You know, some of you said, are we going to mow the grass? And you were surprised when I told you there's no grass to mow. What do you think about this area? Look around. At one time, what do you think about this area?
This is just the trees are all down. This is a big field.
All right, good observation, Kirk. These trees, these little poplars and some of these other trees, there's not a tree standing here that's probably 20, 25 years old. This was a field at one time. Was it a field when these people were buried here? I have no idea. It could have been. It very well could have been. So what I want to do, while you guys catch up on your journal with all this stuff, and by the way, you can kind of back up and lean, sit on the ground. Don't worry about getting dirty. I want to get some guys to put these posts in this ground. Don't roam off. You stay right where you are. All right, sit on the ground. And remember, I want you to draw a little sketch of these three stones. Would you do that? Right now. And I'm going to get a couple people. Josh? We're going to put this chain up here. All right, who's got the shovel? All right, what do I want you to do, huh? Well, get what you can.
You got to keep that down.
No, no.
It kept clipping off.
You shouldn't have.
Joe, is that Mr. Watterson Sr.?
That's Mr. Watterson Sr.
You know what Mr. Watterson said about you? That you bite kids.
My black kid.
You bite.
Oh, I was saying about my black kid. And one of these, at midnight, he'll raise up. He'll get scared. And
All right.
all his chains.
Who's got the shovel?
I do.
All right. Who's got the tampon stick?
Nobody. It's right there.
You got a hole right there, isn't it? Huh?
Remember what I said? You got to have that picture drawn.
How many graves are there here?
There's 3 stones, but we don't have any idea how many people's actually buried. There could be 20. We don't know.
Pretty lot. One thing, they're all dead.
Yeah, they are. For a long time.
They just died to get in this place. There's a big tree over here.
Miss Boston, we got the
Yeah.
best thing ever.
That's in a fence. Well, of course, that wasn't a fence row probably back then. That's
There's one that cut here. I don't know if it's been 40 years ago or what.
Where'd they get you at? I had to have a bus driver.
Oh.
No, not yet. But just lay the flowers off. Okay, where'd my tampa stick go? I had a stick. Oh, you got it. Okay, take it over here and start tamping around. You may want to use the smaller end. That's fine. Draw your picture right there, Brandon. Josh, you got the chain, don't you, buddy?
Yeah. Not even.
Swing it.
Got too much in there, didn't I?
Wow.
Dad, if he help him get those things straight, will you?
Huh?
Help him tamp those and get them straight.
Well, we gotta cut this thing.
Do it for a little bit.
Oh, timber.
Zipper.
Just put your hand up through there. Don't press that red button. Don't press those buttons.
You want this tight?
As tight as I can get it.
No, just tight as you can get it.
Where did the bulldozer
I got a pair of pliers to what? Well, right over there, see? That's what I was saying. If that high line would have happened to have been here, this would have been long gone. I don't think anybody would really pay any attention to it. Get them up.
Chris, touch the chain. What? Touch the chain.
Make sure you get your journals.
He's a bit.
Okay. Not yet. We'll crimp those things in a minute. Well, they'll clean up. I didn't really have any really old ones to wear either. You gonna hold that camera, Carrie? I'm gonna put some more dirt on these if I can. I got enough chain, didn't I? Well, I'll have to
Cut it.
come cut that off there.
Yo, look at
Kurt, you can re-tamp these over here. I'm putting more dirt on top of them.
I had a better day. No, that's beautiful.
I think they missed that weather.
Beautiful day.
I can't think of a way that you might get snakes in and it's any more likely than walking down there.
Where?
Down that way.
Big pond right down there. What do you think this is?
You know, I don't know. I couldn't make that out.
Look at him.
What?
White.
Oh, okay.
Oliver Burnett.
What do you think? Okay. Why? What do you think? Think these people are gonna come back along?
We're going to follow up with some research on this. I wanted to get it done though before weather got.
Oh, this says anything.
No, it says.
I don't know, Mr. Washington.
And
Mr. Watterson,
yes,
you want to clamp it around here?
yeah. Take the pliers and clamp those things so if anybody happened to come along, yeah, clamp it like that. So if anybody happened to come along, they're going to have a pair of pliers or something.
Down there is
Take that chain off.
Wait, get this.
foot wider on this end. Is that it?
I know it.
There's one down here.
Okay. Let's see your picture, Mike.
Oh, picture.
What is it?
Shut it.
All right, everybody caught up on the journal now? What name of what? Oh, okay. It's Jane Burnett, wife of Oliver Burnett.
I'll do it some more. It's the last thing you can get a little stick and pop that stone up.
Well, there's not much I can do with that one. That's just a rock. Still got the camera going, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay. Wire brush.
Yeah.
I know what
How long are you going to be here? We're not going to be here, man. Enough time to go get a wire brush? This ditch has got to be back here. Man, I thought it was C-A-N. Gone home.
Gone home.
Gone home.
That's what it says. Gone home.
Yeah. Okay, we got them all tamped? All right. Everybody want to back up to where you were? You guys can stay there.
Mr.
Back up, please, boys. Yeah, you can stay there. Be all right.
Mr. Waters, you
Yeah.
want me to get what that says?
You can if you want to get around the other side.
Somebody.
Everybody get back to where you were, Jeremy.
I'm clamping this still.
People, Chris.
Yeah, me and Mike can go to my grandma and papa's.
Born February the 3rd, 1820. Something 3.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Hey, can you give me a ride on your 4-wheel?
You don't want to ride in. You drive like a maniac.
I do.
You said that's
He
coming
knocks
up.
us off.
Yeah, but not
Hey,
now.
you're in.
Huh?
Not now. I'll do it with concrete later on.
Hey, Ronnie, I'll pour these stones.
Them big old deer will get tangled up in that chain.
Good.
Deer meat.
The next time I come, I'll bring my 33.
Okay, who's my flyer man? Right. Okay, I need to get a couple still pictures for the paper. We're going to do it. And to do that,
I'll hold it.
come here, Hillary, Amber, Casey, and Mike. I want you guys back over there. Hillary, hold the stone right there. Oh, just hold it up. All right, back in behind there. Be fine. I want to get. Oh, who's got my camera?
Flowers. Put some flowers there in front of that stone.
Okay, yeah. All right.
Back over
Give me
here.
the flowers.
Out here. You gotta go over there. Get over there. Get over there. Go over there. Over there. I'm gonna get back to the car.
Good. Okay. Who's got my camera? Okay, you guys may need to let me back up a little bit. How far? I gotta go back here to get in here.
Robbie, you ain't in it.
Hey. All right, don't move. Let me get another one. I'm done. Good. Hope that came out. Okay, now. Yeah, just lay it back down there, Hillary. Okay, come on, get out of there now.
We got to scoot it out here.
I got it.
Oh.
Kind of easy down there first. Okay, now, sometime between now and the time of snow flies, I'll get back down there and I'll set that stone up. Now, I want you to think about what you did today. You just remembered people who lived 125 years ago, and nobody probably thought much about these people. I don't know how long it's been. We put flowers on their grave, and they were remembered today, weren't they? After all these years. I want you to do one other thing for me. I'm 43. Mr. Gentry's 44, and my dad's 45. You kids are young. I want you to remember what you did, and sometime down the road, when I'm an old, wrinkled up old man and can't do stuff like this anymore, I want you to remember that this is here. Come up here. Take care of it. Maybe you need to redo it one of these days, because you need to remember your past, because that's how you learn about your future and know where you're going. All right? That's why history and social studies is so important. What?
That would mean that him and your mom would have you when he was 2.
Yeah. Okay, everybody, we got everything done. Don't leave anything here now.
I have a journal.
That says Jane Burnett, wife of Oliver Burnett. I want to take just a minute and take you down by the church and show you the other cemetery that Scott Graves had probably about the same time as these people were buried here, okay?
You want to bring this back?
72. I got them. Why, is it not closed? Yeah, I got those little out square, but I didn't have any way squared up.
This thing on.
Okay, we're going to make it on back down to the bus. What I want you to do before you get on the bus, the field down there, the grass, kind of shuffle your feet in that grass, and that'll get some of the mud out of your grass. You want to lead the way, Mr. Gentry, and I'll follow up behind.